So if you're advising someone, how would you say, how do you get this process going? Like, what happened next that made this happen?
Well, I think meeting with Extension, and
Yeah.
they gave us guidelines, and then it was not procrastinating, following through, having a commitment, and proceeding.
What would be a hurdle that if you were going to cite one thing, like maybe a little bit of a challenge?
Like you had said yesterday about just getting the ball rolling. Don't procrastinate. Don't think that you've got time when maybe you don't. I think that's happened to a lot of farms over the years where they thought they had time, the old generation passed on and no paperwork was started. So don't wait, get started.
If you're going to give anyone some advice, what one piece of advice would you give someone looking at planning, doing estate planning or looking at transitioning ownership? What piece of advice would you like to give?
Dialogue with experts and with your peers.
Yeah, I mean, dialogue, and dialogue, again, I think that hits it right in the head, because then you really need the dialogue to take everybody's different goals and put them together. You've got to come up with, like we mentioned before, the farm is such a commitment. This next generation really want to take on the farm entity as a business, or is it just the equity of the property or something? I mean, there's a lot of issues, but the dialogue that's where it has to start.
Everyone needs to know clear goals of what they're in realistic goals of expectations.
The way our family attacks issues is we try to hit priorities that are going on, whether it be the viability of something or whatever. The priority comes down the priority list. This didn't necessarily come up because of any particular event. It just worked its way down the list, and all of a sudden we said, okay, this is something we've got to attack. We attacked it.
Mm-hmm. And about that same time, the seminars were
absolutely.
available, and they caught our interest,
Mm-hmm.
and we got us thinking a little bit more seriously.
If you were going to give folks some advice, what would be the one piece of advice that you'd want to give them on this and getting the transition going and the planning? What piece of advice would you give?
I guess my piece of advice would be to sit down and really talk about what you want and where you want to go with your family. And then I guess talk to an extension or like Susan Production Credit, someplace, and I think they could point you in the direction if they couldn't help you.
Why not earlier? I know you're sensitive to his interests, but why not earlier?
I know he just pushed us, that's all. I mean, there was no incentive before that.
And you weren't really ready, is that?
No.
We were doing fine, I guess. We were still milking and we were fine. But he also, I guess, decided to come back, too, after going to the forest farm, right?
Well, I worked here for quite a while with Dad.
Yeah.
Quite a few years.
Yeah.
And then with no income, just living here.
Yeah.
And then I said, about time to, It was a kind of a, push here and...
So is it the younger generation that kind of has to nudge this and not just wait?
Yeah, because the old Yankees, they don't set in their ways,
Okay, so maybe the younger generation has got to take a little leadership in a
Nice
discreet
way.
Right, a nice way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they have to assure their parents that they're really in for the long haul on this deal and that they're willing to help their parents out and make sure that things go the way their parents want, but give him a little leeway, give him a chance to go into this.
Sometimes I've seen the younger generation even start pulling in outside folks like myself or someone in extension and
That
then
might be a good
use
idea.
that as a third party to kind of take the pressure off.
I think the parents have to be ready and older and to think about what is going to happen to this farm, this family, and us. We've got to stop and we've got to think about all of those things and come up with a plan. Now, is somebody interested? Do we want our land to go into a residential? Do we need the money? Or do we want our children to have a part of our life, which would be the farm?
But I think you need to make some sort of investment into any situation like that. I think that, you know, I don't think giving somebody the whole works, everything, is a good thing either.
Day one, if the son or daughter comes home, sit down and, you know, would you say we start plotting? How would
See what they want to do, and you know.
And maybe buy into, like Keith did, the cows. Maybe buy a few of the cows, and pay the parents. Just see how it's going to work. Not to give the whole thing up at first, but just to see how things are going to work out between father and son, or daughter and son, or you know.
And maybe some benchmarks along the, like what? How would you proceed into this? If you were starting here day one again, fresh out of school, what would you try to set down for terms, and what kind of benchmarks would you put out?
I don't know. I mean, probably try to buy in. I mean, it gives the parents, you know, you're willing to invest, you know, time into the farm, and work hard, and then, you know, gradually buy in to a certain point, and then gradually just send it over if that works out well.
So what would be a big hurdle that you hit in this setting up this transitioning of ownership? What was probably the toughest thing?
I think just getting started. I mean, taking that first step to call you guys and say, come down and help, you know, give us some advice on where to go. I mean, that's taking that, you know, nobody wants to talk about, you know,
Our demise.
their demise.
You have to talk about that. I mean,
You
we
know,
make a joke out of it, and we try to, you know, lighten it up by it's the meeting of our demise, and people have to look at that. They have to be serious, you know.
But I know, just from experience, a lot of that, there's a lot of tension in a lot of families. Even though everybody might talk, there's still, dad doesn't want to admit he's getting old and it's time to retire, and he wants to, or the family, they don't want to let go of the purse strings. And you really have to start learning to back off, and if you wanted to continue.
If you're going to give one piece of advice, what would it be in light of transitioning and estate planning?
Start early. Because, I mean,
Yeah, as soon as you start your business, you got to start planning.
start early.
Because otherwise it's going to take forever.
Because you stop and you go. I mean, it's not in your mind that you're going to do this right now. There's a lot of lapse in between things. Just getting a map of this place has taken, 10 years? I mean, we look at the map when we started it to find out, you know, what it is, so we can do something with it. But it takes a long time.